Hello and welcome to Amphlett Reviews. The past couple of weeks or so has been absolutely insane. One of the biggest selling consoles of the generation, the PlayStation 5, has been released. It's been launched on the 12th in the UK, is where I got mine. I ordered a couple months ago, managed to get mine nice and safe and sound, no problems, and I've been locked into that console ever since the past couple of weeks, and it's been fantastic. PlayStation 5 is probably the biggest thing of this year that's really kind of like either pissed off a lot of people or it's made a lot of people happy, and I think it depends on who got the console. Obviously there's been a lot of people who have been buying multiple copies, selling for crazy money on eBay. There's been kind of Amazon drivers stealing consoles, there's been missing parts in a lot of these editions. It's been selling left, right and centre. Lots of crazy stores, lots going around of the biggest console of the decade, of the generation, and I can see why, because this is a very, very powerful console. This is a very cool, slick, next-gen console that offers so much for a gamer, for someone who loves games and likes to play games in terms of 60 frames per second, higher quality in terms of that kind of next-gen, kind of faster loading times. The console offers a lot for a gamer to really dive into and really get a lot off from. It boosts up your PlayStation 4 games to make them to the best they possibly can. There's been a lot of good stuff about this console. I absolutely love it. I've been really locked into it the past couple of weeks. And one of the reasons I want to do this is a little different in terms of a review. I wanted to talk about one of the launch titles and do a game review. I haven't done one in a long time on this channel, and usually when I do game reviews I don't know how to usually review them because they're quite hard to do for me personally. I've seen a lot of professionals do it on YouTube and kind of professional articles, and everyone has that kind of style. I'm going to try and add my own style into it. I'm going to try and give you guys my impressions of the game in terms of the gameplay and give you guys a bit of insight into what I think of the specific game, and that game is the launch title of Spider-Man Miles Morales. Spider-Man Miles Morales is the perfect game for a launch title for PlayStation 5. It's a game that really homes in and really shows off what the PlayStation 5 can actually do and why you're paying the kind of ridiculous amounts of sums to upgrade your console to something like this. This really shows off how good games can look, how fantastic it looks. The 4K kind of transfers if you've got a 4K TV with the kind of new 2.1 HDMI cable really shows off how fantastic this game looks and how other games look on the console as well. This game is visually gorgeous, fantastic in terms of the city itself, in terms of the kind of the weather, the snow, the little details on the suit, the reflection, the kind of ray tracing you're gonna get. There's a lot of technical, really good, fantastic offerings that we never got on the PS4, PS4 Pro, which has been elevated to another level on this, including 60 frames per second mode, performance mode, that really kind of shows how fast gameplay can be. Faster loading times, no crashes, no bugs, instant load into the game. This is how games should be played. We shouldn't have to be waiting like 4 or 5 minutes for the game to load up, or whether it wants to work, whether it wants to pop in those kind of texture details. We want to be immersed into that world, much like films, much like music. We want to be immersed into that world and not have to worry about any of the kind of these surroundings around it. Now, Spider-Man Miles Morales is a sequel slash kind of spin-off to the Spider-Man came out last year, which, if anyone doesn't know, Spider-Man, I kind of felt on my first initial playthrough wasn't that amazing, and that's probably be a lot of hate for that. I'm probably going to get a lot of down comments, a lot of downs for that. I thought the gameplay for Spider-Man, the first game, was the best part of the entire experience. I thought the gameplay was really fun. I felt like the main thing in a Spider-Man game, or like a Batman game, you want to feel like the character, and the one thing they've got nailed in that first game especially is playing Spider-Man. Being Spider-Man, using the abilities, using the kind of web swinging, felt fantastic. I haven't felt that way since playing Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2. First time Sony offered a Marvel experience, a Marvel game that didn't suck anyway.
That is one big pile of shit.
And it's the absolute perfect time to release this game, with Spider-Man being so popular with Tom Holland and the kind of end game. Perfect time to release it, and it actually was a pretty decent, well-crafted Spider-Man game. I just felt at the time, anyway, when I first played it, the story wasn't anything special. I kind of felt like I kind of got this already. I thought Spider-Man 2 was the best version of the Spider-Man story. I didn't feel like this offered much. I think it kind of dragged its heels a bit too much. I wasn't that invested in kind of this version of Spider-Man. I love the gameplay, I love some of the side stuff. I have got the remastered version thanks to the PlayStation 5. I bought this edition to get the remaster, which features the remastered version of the game plus all the DLC. So I will be replaying it again. I will giving it another go to see how I feel about it. And coming into this kind of sequel / spin-off of Miles Morales, I thought was a fantastic opportunity to do something different in terms of offering a new version of Spider-Man. We've kind of seen Peter Parker multiple times. There are 3 different versions of the characters, not including the animation series, in terms of various other kind of versions of the characters in terms of the games, and just have a different take on Spider-Man, different version of Spider-Man, I thought was great. And Miles Morales is a really good character. I really like him from the comics. Obviously, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was fantastic. One of the best Spider-Man movies probably ever made. From an animation film, it definitely rivals a lot of the other Spider-Man movies. Really fantastic, really brilliant film. And surprisingly, this game I think is a lot more stronger, a lot more consistent, a lot more tighter Spider-Man experience compared to the base game. Even though the base game is a lot longer and you get a big grand arc story including the DLC, this game is a much more shorter game. If you're just focusing on the main story, you're going to finish it within a day. If you're doing all the side stuff, if you're doing all the activities, side missions, also all that kind of stuff, and upgrading, it will take you probably about 15 hours, depending on your speed and in terms of how long you're taking with the game. Obviously, this is a PlayStation 5 launch title. It is available on the PS4 as well. For me, I was taking my time. I was really exploring every nook and cranny, really diving myself into this world, and really exploring this version of Spider-Man. And the good thing about this game is that it feels very different. I thought this was a much more satisfying, much more rewarding Spider-Man experience game compared to the base game. From obviously playing that game once, obviously. I thought was great. I thought Miles Morales' character in this, I thought was so good. I thought he had such style, and he had his own kind of version of, he's got his own family, he's got his friends. There's a personal connection with the villain that kind of happens throughout the game. I thought was quite unique and really had a lot of high stakes to what's going on in terms of how he has to deal with being Miles Morales and Spider-Man kind of thing, and being a trainee and being someone new to it and being left alone in New York to kind of be Spider-Man for a couple of weeks while Peter Parker is out across overseas doing something else. And this is an interesting kind of character journey. It's character exploring. We get to see the origins of this character, going through his doubts, going through his kind of emotions in terms of how he reacted to his family, his friends, and just kind of learning and having fun as well. And that's the thing, the character is having fun. He's enjoying being this superhero crime fighter and being compassionate, and he's being careful. He's making a few mistakes here and there, but you really get to know him, and you really get to put yourself in his shoes, and I think that's fantastic. And Miles Morales' character really offers something different in terms of Peter Parker can. The good thing about it as well is the fact that the character earns to be Spider-Man, and that's the one thing I always say about in terms of superhero movies, in terms of if you're going to play a character, you're going to earn to be that person. He doesn't just take being Spider-Man and just say I'm that character now. He goes through his kind of doubts and kind of his worries, and even other people throughout the game kind of say, where's the other Spider-Man, or you're not the actual Spider-Man one, do you want the other guy? And again, very similar to kind of Into the Spider-Verse, where he's kind of coming into his own, having his doubts. He becomes a Spider-Man. He embraces being the Spider-Man, and I think that's fantastic, and that's exactly what you want in terms of a kind of superhero origin story, or kind of someone accepting to becoming that character. Miles Morales and Peter Parker are exactly who they are, day and night kind of thing. They are Spider-Man, they are Peter Parker, they are Miles Morales, they are Spider-Man. And Miles Morales is kind of more his compass, his kind of goodwill nature flows straight into this character. He stumbles upon a conspiracy in terms of Roxxon, this kind of energy company that's doing some shady stuff. There's other stuff going on with the underground, this kind of like tech, kind of like terrorist organization that also wants to take out Roxxon. And also you've got Rhino, you've got the Prowler, you've got a few personal background kind of stories going on in terms of some of the side quests. And it's really good. It's really nice, well done, nice simple story that really helps the character really flesh out, and you get to really dive into who this version of Spider-Man is. Now the gameplay for Spider-Man. Obviously, if you play the base game of Spider-Man, you know exactly what you're going to get. Swinging through cities, taking out bad guys, side missions, collectibles, kind of challenges. you know the score, you know what you get for a Spider-Man game. Well, I think this one does quite well. I think it changed a few things. I think it tweaks a few things here and there to make this its kind of own version. Obviously, playing this version of Spider-Man, he has a different sort of kind of skill sets in terms of his kind of punches and his throwdowns. He has this new ability, like this kind of like bioelectricity. That's really cool and really badass. And when you really charge it up and when you get those combos up, it really kind of electrocutes all his enemies, and it's really satisfying. And it visually looks fantastic on screen. And he has a lot of moves with that as he kind of develops throughout the game. He also has a cloaking ability, which is great for stealth. It's really fun to do stealth and kind of hide on the walls and the shadows and take out people without people noticing. Makes it quite different. So you got two unique powers that makes it different. On top of that, you've got this kind of new sort of like app system where he kind of gets called upon, or kind of like side missions or activities that are going on throughout the game where you can interact and you can go and stop crime. Where in the base game you kind of stumble upon crime, always a direct side mission. I think Peter Parker's kind of like set of skill sets and his kind of abilities and his kind of like throwdowns and combos are quite different compared to Miles Morales, which is great. I don't want a copy and paste situation. It is similar, of course, but it's not the same. You're getting two very different Spider-Mans with different powers and abilities and combos. In terms of a PlayStation launch title, this I think is an absolute perfect game to get. It really shows off what PlayStation 5 can do in terms of visual, in terms of performance, in terms of what you're going to get. It's a nice short experience. It's not too long, it's not too short. It gives you exactly what you want for a launch title. It's definitely a reasonable price if you get the Ultimate Edition in terms of the remastered Spider-Man, so you get 2 for 1 in terms of your bundle there. Spider-Man Miles Morales delivers in terms of action, in terms of its own kind of gameplay, its own style. Its story, I think, is a lot more satisfying, a lot more tighter compared to the base game. I think Miles Morales' character is very interesting, intriguing. You really want to support him, you really want to get behind him in terms of this version of Spider-Man. I'd love to see more what they do with him. Yeah, Spider-Man Miles Morales delivers on what it says to do. A launch title game that really offers a lot for its money. It's not just a sequel spin-off game, it's also its own game itself. I'd love to see a continuation, a little sequel to this version of Spider-Man. I hope you enjoyed this game review, guys. I hope we do a lot more down the line as well. Talk about some more fantastic games on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Some games that I really do enjoy and really do get behind and recommend. Until next time, guys, it's been Amphlett Reviews. Signing out.